Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, The Power of Vision. My name is Gary Schoeniger. I'm the founder and CEO of the Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative. Thanks for joining us today. Joni, before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yep.
You can all hear me? Great. Okay, then we're going to get started. Thank you, Joni. This is part of a student engagement webinar series. Today we're going to talk about the power of vision. I hope to make a case how an entrepreneurial mindset is connected to a vision and ultimately leads to engagement. We have three panelists with us today. Tom Darling is joining us as an experienced Ice House facilitator, originally starting out at C&M College in New Mexico in Albuquerque. Tom is now leading these efforts at the city of Albuquerque's. Tom, good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Gary. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Tom. Lynn Chandler Garcia is also here. Lynn is a very experienced Ice House facilitator from Colorado Springs. She's been teaching Ice House for a number of semesters at Pikes Peak Community College. Lynn, thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
And lastly, we have Stephen Holmes, who is a student at Pikes Peak Community College. Stephen, thank you for joining the webinar today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go. So I want to start with what I view as an alarming statistic that comes from Gallup. 70% of workers in the United States are not engaged in their work. This is an astonishing figure. It's worse when you leave the United States, but the vast majority of workers are not engaged in their work. Also from Gallup, student engagement is not much better. This is from Gallup, what they refer to as the student engagement cliff and how the engagement falls off from elementary to middle to high school. The United States has fallen from number 1 to number 16th in college completion. What we want to demonstrate here is entrepreneurial thinking and how it connects to student engagement. So in the Ice House Student Success course, there are 8 fundamental concepts. I'm going to tick through them now very briefly. There's so much here, not even going to come close to doing it service. But the concepts begin with the power of choice, and this is where the vision begins, really encouraging students to reflect about the life they want to create for themselves rather than the circumstances, rather than be bound by the circumstances they happen to be in. The second concept is based on the fundamental premise that problems are potential opportunities, and that by solving problems for others, we can empower ourselves. This is the idea that shifts the focus towards problem solving rather than problem avoidance or problem or complaining. The third concept is about acting on ideas, and what this means essentially is micro experimentation. If you think there's a better way, test it, understand the problem, talk to people, act on the idea. The fourth concept is about the constant pursuit of knowledge. We have studied entrepreneurs in the wild, if you will, and they tend to be voracious, self-directed, lifelong learners. So we look at these 3 concepts of the engines that drive that drives entrepreneurial thought and process. Looking at problems as potential opportunities, trying to solve problems, testing ideas, and always learning. From there, we talk about wealth creation. It's more of a resourceful mindset, building a brand of being reliable, connecting, creating your own support community, what's known in social psychology as a community of practice. And lastly, the power of persistence. We so often think that success is a matter of luck or privilege or something that's beyond our control. What we hope to demonstrate through case studies is that success comes through persistence. There's a number of quotes that we use in the Ice House Student Success course, but one of them I think really hits this point hard: where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think this is a really important point. We're encouraging students to start by imagining a compelling future. What is the life you imagine? That's the beginning point. So where's the vision? Where is your why? What is it? What is the life you imagine? We're encouraging students to write reflectively about the life they would create for themselves without thinking about the how, just the why, right? Nietzsche taught us this, that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. You'll see underneath the why is the means, or the how, and that's really the managerial part of life. That's the entrepreneurial portion of it. The Ice House Student Success course is based on the premise that you can get what you want by helping other people get what they want. That's the fundamental premise. At the end of the day, you have to do the work. You have to do the daily actions that help move you towards your vision. So I've created this another diagram. Many of you are familiar with Csikszentmihalyi's work around flow. We find this useful to articulate the powerful, the massively synergistic combination of a compelling future combined with an entrepreneurial mindset. So if you see the blue circle in the bottom, it's current reality. We're encouraging students to not only think about a compelling future, but to also think about where you are. Let's start where you are with what you have and who you know. But it's the compelling future that pulls people down the path, and that they're constantly being challenged throughout the process, but it's the compelling future that keeps them engaged in the challenge. I also want to point out here that embedded in the student success course are relatable social models. There are video case studies of ordinary people who have done extraordinary things by embracing these concepts. So not only are they learning about the theory, they're hearing from ordinary people who have embraced these ideas and applied them to your life. You're going to hear from Stephen talking about that shortly. I also wanted to put a slide in here that talks about the sources of motivation and why this is so important for vision. Too often we mistakenly think that money is all there is to motivation, and this is a misunderstanding. I created this slide to demonstrate the different motivating factors, intrinsic motives or direct motives versus indirect motives. And we know from a wide body of research that individuals who are intrinsically motivated outperform those who are extrinsically motivated. So extrinsic motivation would be emotional pressure, economic pressure, I need the money, or just inertia. This is what I've always been doing, I'm going to keep doing it. The vision is important because the outcome is so compelling. It helps to elicit or cultivate intrinsic motivation. So the last slide I have here is to also discuss how the course is designed to help move a student from a dependent learner to an interested learner to an involved learner and ultimately to self-directed learner. I mean, that's the holy grail that we want, that a vision will create or help foster, cultivate self-directed lifelong learning. So I have a few questions that I would like to open up first to our panelists and then open it up to those of you who have joined us on the call. So these first two questions are directed to Tom and Lynn, who have taught the Ice House course to a wide variety of audiences. Tom has taught the course at CNM to students, to city workers, to adults in a number of different contexts. Lynn is taught as a first-year experience course, the Student Success course at Pikes Peak. So this first question, and Lynn, I'll ask you first, why is this vision an important aspect of an entrepreneurial mindset and ultimately student success?
Sure, Gary. I think the most important thing is it kind of sets the stage for the learning experience. Like you said on one of the slides, it provides the why. So when we're first starting the semester, it provides the why are you in school? Why are you taking these classes? Is it because mom and dad told you to come to school and you're doing it to please them? Is it because you went to high school and you think, well, now I got to go to college? Is it because what all your other friends are doing? Because if that's what's putting you in school, that's probably not the right reason. We need to take a step back and think about this. We need a goal or a vision that's compelling the learning. So we're learning, we're going to school, we're taking these classes because we want to develop ourselves. We have a goal in mind. So I think that's an important first step for most students, and unfortunately, a lot of students haven't even thought about that. They enrolled in college because they thought they were supposed to. So I think it sets that first step. And then the other thing I think is important is about midway through the semester, when we're in that managerial portion of the pyramid, it's important to revisit this vision. So now we're bogged down with tests, with papers, we're in the grunt of things, and students sometimes get overwhelmed. And if they can keep that vision in mind and realizing, yes, we're sacrificing, yes, we're working hard, but there is a vision we're trying to achieve. And I think that helps keep motivation up. The other thing it does is students are going to have classes inevitably that they don't love. There might be a teacher who's not that wonderful, a textbook that they just don't really understand, and a lot of students get bogged down again in those kinds of situations. But when they have their vision, they can think, okay, I need to take perhaps this math class, for instance. I have to take the math class because it's a stepping stone to get my degree to what I ultimately want to do, which is part of my vision. Right. Well, I don't enjoy my math teacher. I'm not learning much from this math teacher, so I want to complain and I want to tell all my friends how terrible the math teacher is and such and such. Well, you can do that, you can complain, but it's not helping you reach your vision. The bottom line is you have to learn math. So if your vision is compelling, you are going to find a way as a student to learn that math and get over those obstacles. So I think it also helps students realize that at this point in their life, college is on them. They have ownership over their education. And when they see that vision out in front of them, it helps them realize that their teacher doesn't own their education. Their parents don't own it anymore. They own it, and they have to take control and get through the semester and finish strong.
Yeah, that's fabulous, Lynn. You know, and to your earlier point, Lynn, I just spent the last 2 days at Purdue University. I did a keynote and some workshops there at the Purdue Polytechnic School about fostering entrepreneurial mindsets. That same problem exists at Purdue. Students showing up, asking questions about what do I have to do to get the A. They're extrinsically motivated. They're less interested in the knowledge. So it's not just community college students that are thinking that way. They come into the experience not realizing how they're just kind of going through the motions. So Tom, I wanted to switch to you now and talk about, like, why is this creating a vision important part of an entrepreneurial mindset? How have you seen this impact your students?
Excuse me. Well, not only have I taught college students who are, in a degree program, but we're also doing a lot of training with employees that are in current jobs from an employee engagement standpoint. And another thing too, Gary, is that we just finished doing a class for high school students here in Albuquerque, as you know, and it's really, really interesting to see the contrast between how vision is kind of perceived by the different age groups. In our college students, when we talk about vision and we kind of talk about this idea of imagining the life that you want to create, a lot of it, just as Lynn said, goes back to the idea of, well, my vision is to get an A in this class, and it's really limited to the here and now, as opposed to, where do you want to be, where do you want to be one day. With our high school students, it is so much easier for a high school student to talk about vision because they have big dreams, and their dreams haven't been jaded by life experience that has gotten in the way and kind of crushed out their view of where they want to be one day. So they're still talking about being rich and being an astronaut or being doing something amazing and great. With our folks in the employee engagement, like even with our city employees and others that we're training, they're the ones that have a hard time getting their minds around this concept of vision, because maybe when they were younger they had the idea that vision was going to be, one of these days I want to live here and I want to have this kind of family and I want to accomplish these goals, but here I am 5 years away from retirement, or I'm in this particular position with kids going to college, or things aren't the way I want, and my vision is, can I make it to Friday without pissing somebody off at my workplace? And so, it is so important to start getting people back on track with really taking responsibility for really imagining the life they want to create. And just because they're 40 or 50 doesn't mean there's not time left to create the life they want to create, because it really does come to choice. What we do, the way we teach this and we start talking about vision is I have the students and participants that take classes, when we talk about vision, I actually have them get up either on a flip chart or on a whiteboard, and we have them draw a picture that captures your ultimate vision of where you want to be one day. What does that look like? And if they can't draw, that's even better, because then they can use words, and just it forces them, instead of trying to write a statement, just trying to kind of picture what it is they're, where they want to be. And the whole point is that being able to see past the job or past my parents' expectations or past the expectations of my employer is, vision is, it keeps people from being distracted by the day-to-day things they can't control. And we talk a lot about the locus of control and what do you have control over and what you don't. And when we have a very specific, clear vision, when we're trying to decide how we choose where we're going to go, we don't get distracted by those shiny objects and those things we can't control.
Right. More of a tendency to focus on the things you can control and ignore the things that you can't.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, Tom, do you see, I think a lot of people, when you ask somebody on a casual, what is your goal? It's like retirement.
That's what they say.
It's
just... and they know how many days and how many hours they have left, and they know what percentage they're going to get. But then we talk to folks that are looking that way and say, well, what are you going to do after you retire? And and they say, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll start a business, or maybe I'll go spend time with the grandkids, or golf, and then we remind them, well, especially like our police officers that are city employees, after 20 years they get to retire with 80% of their top 3 earning years of income. But these folks that went through the academy when they were 20, they retire when they're 40, and when you're 40 and you have nothing to do all day, so often we find people at 40 years old or 45 or 50 60 even, entering retirement. And just like the quote said at the beginning, where there is no vision, the people perish. And when we don't have vision, we get distracted by everything that comes across, and there, and it doesn't go away. And so, this idea of vision is that it doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've worked somewhere. Vision is something that always must be in front of you to help you chart the course for where you're going to go, what you're going to leave behind when you're not here, and it can never go away.
Yeah, it reminds me, like, we should always be striving for something we care about. Right. And some of the comments you made, Tom, remind me, I think it was a Shakespeare that said, death is but one way in which to lose your life. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. So I want to also mention here to the folks that are have joined us today, there's going to be a Q&A in just a few minutes. There's a question tab on your control panel on your GoToWebinar. You can type questions in there and we'll address those. You can address your questions to Tom, to Lynn, or to Stephen or myself in just a few minutes. I want to give these next few questions going. So, Tom, I'm going to keep this with you. What impact have you seen on your students when they engage in visioning? I think you touched on this a little bit. Do you have more to say here?
Yeah, first off, when we first start talking about it, and I always ask, do you have a vision, and how do you transfer that vision into reality? Those are the two questions when we get into it. And typically we get a lot of blank stares at first. I mean, there's a few people that will have an idea, but then so we get up and we'll have them draw it out or think through it. But what ends up happening is they start thinking about it, and they start engaging in the process of trying to picture. And every now and then, there's always one or two students in the group that will be stuck, and they will say, "Well, gosh, I haven't thought about this way, and I just don't know, and I need to go home and talk to my spouse, or I need to, I just need to." And you prompt them. What ends up happening is after they pick something and put it on paper and then start thinking about it, is you can almost see that the individual starts kind of getting, they start getting engaged. Because sometimes they realize, oh my gosh, I haven't taken good care of myself, or my gosh, I'm never going to do that because I didn't save any money, whatever it may be. And what happens is it forces them to re-engage in thinking, okay, so this is my vision. Well, how do I get there? If you have no direction, you'll never get lost.
Right.
And so, well, that's right. And you just kind of wander along. Some of our high school students, when we did this activity, some of them obviously said, well, my vision is to be this one day, or my vision is to be that one day. And we actually bring in entrepreneurs from the outside to come in and talk to some folks, and we brought them in for the high school students. And it was really great having some of these folks talk about, some of the entrepreneurs from the community say, I just didn't want to work for somebody else, or I just wanted to find a way that I could have fun and do what I wanted to do, with what I love to do, or I wasn't passionate about this. And then they talk about their experiences, and then some of these kids in the class, the high school group, started sharing, as we were going through this process. I said, I didn't realize that I had permission to start to chart my own course, or I didn't realize I had permission to dream a little bit.
They come in touch with their own sense of learned helplessness.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, and even adults, I think adults struggle with that even more, because people give up their visions and their dreams and their goals when they have kids and start paying for college and start paying for houses, and forget that it's okay. Yeah. You have permission to imagine the life you want to create.
Yep. And I want to remind our audience, Tom, that you've not only taught this to community college students, to high school students, but you're now the director of Public Service University at the city of Albuquerque, where you're now teaching hundreds of city employees how to embrace an entrepreneurial mindset within their jobs in the city of Albuquerque. That's fabulous. Lynn, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the impact of this visioning on your students.
Sure. I think this is one of the most important parts of the class. I always start my class by having them write a vision, and then I end it on the same note, almost the exact same assignment. And what's really fun is watching the vision statements evolve. So on the first day of class, I might have a student who says, okay, my vision is to be a dental hygienist. Bam, done.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit, because I don't think your dream really is scraping teeth. That's not your dream. So let's think about that a little bit. What is the dream? What is it about dental hygienist that intrigues you? Okay.
Great.
Well, health is important to you, and dental hygiene is part of that. Helping people is important to you. A steady income is important to you because you want to have a family or such and so forth. You want to be able to live anywhere in the world that you want, and that's always a need as dental hygienists. So now we're digging a little bit deeper. I'm not saying that dental hygienist is a bad career, because it's not, but that's not your vision. That's another stepping stone towards your vision. So by the end, a lot of students will still want to be dental hygienists, and they're still getting their degree in that, but they're thinking a little bit more broadly that my vision really is a happy, stable family where I can provide for my children and not have to worry every day about how I'm going to pay the bills. My vision is helping other people. Not only do I want to help them health-wise, but maybe I'm passionate about a certain social cause. And so this career, being a dental hygienist, gives me nice steady hours. Then in my spare time, I'm going to pursue this cause, and I'm able to have that freedom to do that. Or one of my students who had a similar type of career goal, but really what he was passionate about was music. Mm. So he's going to work as an EMT for a little while he builds his medical career, or his music career, excuse me, and he'll pour that money that he's making as an EMT into his music career, because that's his ultimate vision. So they start to distinguish stepping stones from a true vision. They start to realize that the extrinsic rewards are more towards helping them find their intrinsic rewards, which is what they really want. So I always look forward to the end of the class, the end of the semester, when I can read these final vision statements, because they're just so remarkable. The students have evolved so much. They see school as a new purpose. They understand the point of it now. They're not just going there to fulfill mom and dad's request. They see the point and why they're there. And I think it just really helps them focus the rest of their lives, especially when they do this as a first-year experience. It just makes the next 4 years of their schooling so much more important.
Lynn, that is absolutely spot on. And one of the things I want to draw out from your comment is what you're demonstrating is what a competent facilitator should be doing, which is helping people find their why. And mm-hmm. That's what good facilitation should be, asking why. You know, you want to be a dental technician, why? And keep digging to get to the ultimate. That's a super important part of the way the Icehouse Student Success Program is designed. The facilitator does not need to be a subject matter expert. And Lynn, you know, you're one of the greatest stories ever of how, you know, I always tease people. I say when Lynn, you know, showed up for the Icehouse training, she didn't know how to spell the word entrepreneur. But right. It's just like you didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship in the traditional way, but you're using this course so effectively because you know how to facilitate and dig and help people find their why. I'm really glad you brought that up. So I think
if I could just add in one, could I add in one thing here? I think the cool thing about the way this program is set up is that we are very adamant that we are facilitators and not instructors. And so I think what really makes it easy about this class is once I start digging a little bit with a student, the other students start digging with each other, and they really take on the lead in the classroom. They help each other find that why, and they listen to the stories of others, which helps them along. So it's a pretty, even though I didn't know how to spell the word, it was not a hard thing to do because we helped each other as within the classroom. The students helped me and I helped them.
Yeah, that's fabulous, Lynn. Thank you. I want to get to Stephen. He's been patiently sitting on the sidelines here. And Stephen, you've probably been sitting on your hands, dying to chime in here. I want to ask you, Stephen, how has this impacted you as a student in community college?
Well, I must say that being exposed to the Ice House entrepreneurship program impacted me hugely in my life and in where I'm going. About 2.5 years ago, I had coming off of having a failed business. My marriage had pretty much so fallen apart. I was working at a local convenience store and sitting in my little one-bedroom apartment every day watching Netflix all day long. And I wasn't happy. I was secure, but I wasn't happy. And one day I decided to look at our local college, Pikes Peak Community College, and I decided, you know what? I'm bored. It's going to give me something to do. Let's try it. So really, right at that point in time, I didn't have a whole lot of vision. There was a small vision of maybe becoming better suited for the company I worked for. I worked for Kroger at one of their convenience stores, and I thought, hey, maybe I'll get a business degree and get a better job.
Right.
So that economic motivator was kind of there, but really it was all about just I was bored. So I went in, and I was told right off the bat that because of the fact that I'm a non-traditional student, and it'd been over 30 years since I'd been in school.
Wow.
I need a little bit of help to get started. And so I had to take some developmental classes to catch back up. And as a part of taking the developmental classes, I was required to take our student success class, and I wound up in the Ice House class. And right from the get-go, I realized the importance of that class and how it was going to help me to be a better student, which I was very rare. Most of the students were very resistant of taking the class. But as it began to develop and I began to see how vision was going to help me, I began to develop that vision. And the vision started out at the beginning, like I said, maybe better economic future. But I was really just checking boxes as I went along.
Yep.
You get a degree plan and they say you have to finish these classes. And it's like, well, I got to check this box and this box. But now what's happened is through the Ice House course, I developed the vision. I began to realize that I wanted to give back somehow. And what I determined is I want to become a teacher.
Wow.
Or an instructor. And that shifted too. That's what I love is your vision. You have that overall vision, but it continues to evolve as you work through it. The way I look at it, it's like you've decided you want to go to the big city that's closest to you. For us, it would be Denver.
Yep.
And so you're going to go to Denver. But as you're getting close to Denver, it's like, well, what do I want to do in Denver? Well, I want to go to a museum.
Right.
Which museum do you want to go to? Well, I want to go to the Colorado History Museum. And at each step of the way, that vision refines until you find yourself right in front of that one display in that museum that just speaks to you and that you absorb everything about it.
Stephen,
and so my vision is, go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to ask you, Stephen, is I think what you're saying is you sort of woke you up, like you started to think bigger as a result of being exposed to the Ice House content, the curriculum. But you're also sort
Absolutely.
of describing how your sense of efficacy is also expanding. Like your vision is increasing as you're realizing you're capable of more. I mean, is that an accurate way to say it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, as a matter of fact, even within the last week, because of some of the things I've been exposed to because of getting involved in education, my vision has shifted a little bit more to where I've actually, I always kind of joke around with a lot of the folks here at Pikes Peak that they say you're going to change your major 5 times through the course of your college career.
Yeah.
And I just made my third major change, but I think that's going to be the last one, because I've found the piece of what I want to do, and how I think I can, not just what's good for me, but how I can help other people. And that's really the vision for me, is how I can help other people to be better in their lives.
So, Stephen, let me pick up that point right there, and you raise a really interesting point that I want to seize on. The Ice House Student Success course is largely informed by the work of Martin Seligman in positive psychology. And what we know from positive psychology is that humans tend to flourish when they have an opportunity to match their skills and interests with something greater than themselves, which I'm interpreting as more than just collecting a paycheck. In some way, they can apply what Seligman calls signature strengths to something greater than ourselves. That's what you seem to be describing, Stephen, is you can help other people, and you're beginning to flourish, and you're therefore becoming more engaged.
Absolutely.
So
here on our college. Oh, go ahead, Gary.
No, I want to also address something that you mentioned earlier. Like when you came into the class, a lot of the students were disgruntled, and I want to make sure we have some clarity about that. At the Pikes Peak and Lynn, you were part of this initial student success, where students were randomly assigned the course. They didn't have a choice. There were 1,000 students initially, randomly selected to take Ice House as a developmental course. And we visited the classrooms out there, and we heard from many students told us in the first week or two, they were upset. Why am I taking this course? I'm not a business major. And slowly and subtly, they started to realize, like, oh, wow, wait a minute, this isn't a business course, this is a life skills course. Can you talk about that, Lynn, how you saw students, that shift in students coming in sort of confused and unhappy about finding themselves in an entrepreneurship course?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do that, I have to give some praise to our president, Lance Bolton, because he really saw what Ice House was all about, and he wanted to do a rigorous test to make sure that this really worked before we invested a lot of money as an institution. Let's make sure this works. So what he did is he took in all our incoming population that needed some kind of student success course and forced it on them, mandatory.
Yep.
So we're put in one of two courses, which kind of annoyed a lot of students because it was a pilot program, so brand new program, and at first it does now, but at first this class did not transfer to our four-year university in town. It does now, but these students were put in this class, they had to pay tuition for it, and then it didn't transfer. So they were irate. I mean, I can't describe it any other way, but I think for 75% of the students, once they got in about 2 weeks, and they realized how important this was and how important the vision was and all the things they were going to be learning about themselves and their self-development, I would say about 75% of them were converts.
Yep.
And what's really funny is this just was in my class last Wednesday. I had a student who was sitting there and he said, he's got this thick Chicago accent. Students need to learn time management, and they need to learn a little bit about themselves and how to focus themselves and how to get where they need to go and how to talk to people and come out of the shell. That's what students really need to learn. Then he paused for a minute and he said, they need to take this class. Whoever decided to make them take this class, God, that was smart. We all just started laughing so hard because now the students get it.
Yeah.
And we're 4 semesters in, and we're at the point where our students are choicing in. Now they aren't mandatory, but they choose to do the Ice House. And it's all based on hearing from other students, what course should I take? We're getting huger and huger populations in the Ice House course because students realize it's a class that's good for them.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. I want to move on now and give our audience time to answer some questions. Ask some questions for you, Lynn, for Tom, or for Stephen, or myself. I'm going to just step away here. Blanca, welcome to the podcast. I see you have a question here. What is Tom's full name? It's Tom Darling, and I'm happy to send you his contact information immediately following the presentation. Any questions? There's a question bar in your control panel. If you want to type in a question, be happy to answer. It's funny, Lynn, to hear, like as I said, coming back from a couple days at Purdue, and they're dealing with so many of the same issues of students that are just showing up. They don't really know why they want to be there. And they're the first question they ask is, what do I have to do to get the A?
Right.
It's a little discouraging. Right?
Yeah, when we get into the lesson on knowledge, that's something we actually talk about in the classroom, is what is the point of the grade and what is the point of the learning and why are you really here? And I think students start to evolve and they start to see that it's important. The learning is what's important, not the grade. And I think that's actually really cool for them because then they realize, you know what, if I fail a test but I've learned something, all is not lost. I've learned something and I can move on from there. And I think it actually gives them a sense of courage to be able to keep going and realize that they didn't fail in the learning process. They failed a test, but they did learn something and they can retake the test, retake the class, do what they need to do to get the learning. But that's the ultimate goal. And I think it's really liberating for a lot of students.
Yeah. So Blanca's asking to go over the sources of motivation slide again, and I'm happy to do that, Blanca. We will send these slides to all of you immediately following this this presentation. Blanca, this is from a book I read recently by Doshi and McGregor. The title of the book, I apologize to the authors, I've forgotten. But it's basically the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. A lady at Yale has done and published a study recently about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and a study that was conducted over a number of years at the West Point Military Academy, and how young cadets performed over time depending on whether or not they were intrinsically or extrinsically motivated. In part of the research for the Ice House Student Success Program, we looked at the work of Deci and Ryan in self-determination theory. By far, the most powerful motivators are essentially the need for autonomy, for mastery, and for purpose, to have our work have some kind of meaning to others, to become good at something, and to be able to have an autonomous life and not be told what to do. So play, purpose, potential are the most potent motivators. They're intrinsic motivators, where the external motivators are the weakest. And it's so interesting how people think money will motivate you. It really money is a very weak motivator when you begin to look at the science there. So thank you,
Gary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to comment for a minute on that, because here at the city and in bureaucracies where you have employee engagement as an issue, we have a lot of folks that they go right to that. They're trying to, how do I, when are we going to get a raise, and how are we going to figure out how to make more money, or we have some of our directors that are actually struggling right now and feeling like they can't attract good enough people to come work because they can't offer enough money, because in city governments or state governments you can't do that. And the trick with this and how it applies is, and anybody that's studied organizational behavior understands that money is like the fourth or fifth motivator, and someone needs to feel like their work matters, like their boss recognizes, like they're making a contribution, like they enjoy the work that they're doing, they're part of a team. All of those things are internal or intrinsic motivators, and so part of what's so great about Ice House is when you start talking about locus of control, what can I control, what can't I control, and where does my power to choose, as we're building a vision come from, it's all very intrinsic. And, because when we see the light bulb turn on for folks, let's just pick on, the city for a minute. When we see the light bulb turn on is when, we say, look, this isn't about offering people more money. Offering people more money is not going to make them work harder, nor bring necessarily the best. We want people to be empowered who want to work and want to do their job and feel like they're part of the team. Because the reality is if someone's miserable and you pay them more money, they spend more money to medicate their misery.
Yeah.
And their money is never enough.
Right. Money just doesn't do it. That's well documented in the science. Thank you for that, Tom. So Brad Thompson is asking, any suggestions to engage younger students, 7th and 8th graders, around vision? That's a really good question, Brad, and I want to address it in a sort of a roundabout, oblique way, is engaging students, 7th and 8th graders, in problem solving. Like, I would almost discourage students to think too far in the future. There's too much pressure for 6th, 7th, 8th graders to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life. For younger audiences, I would ask them a question I learned from Jaime Casap, who's the director of education at Google Education. Stop asking students what they want to be when they grow up, and just start asking them what problems they want to solve and what do they need to learn in order to solve those problems. That's how I would sort of modify this message. The vision, I would turn that down a little bit for a younger audience, if that makes any sense. Diane Henderson, thank you, Diane. How different is the student success curriculum from the original academic edition? I'll take that one, Tom. I know you've taught both. Lynn, I think you've taught both. The fundamental concepts are identical. We've modified the language in the student success in a few ways. One is we've modified the language, Diane, to get out in front of students saying, what am I doing in an entrepreneurship course? I'm not a business major. So learning what we did from Pikes Peak, we modified the language to help students understand, relax, this is not a business course, this is a life skills course. You're going to need these skills regardless if you work in a government, in a large established organization, or you want to start something new. Employers need these skills as well. So the content is the same, slightly modified messaging. There are a few case studies of successful students who talk about how they embrace these concepts and how it helped them succeed in school. Blanca, I have engaged students that age on short-term projects in their community. Exactly. I ask them what problems they want to solve. That's how engagement happens, Blanca. Thank you for jumping in on that one. It's so powerful. Look at the work of this guy, Sugitra Mehta, who does self-organized learning environments with poor children in India. It's really helping people. Humans are hardwired to want to solve problems. And that's where the engagement comes from, because there's purpose. When we solve problems for other people, our work has meaning, and that's what leads to engagement. And I want to sort of use that concept to come back to this slide. That's what engages the student. The compelling future is my work has meaning. So I'm not just enduring a life that I hate. in order to get to some sort of imagined finish line like retirement. It's the compelling future and the engagement come together with the entrepreneurial mindset, which is really about solving problems for other people. So thank you for chiming in there also, Blanca. Very much appreciated. Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Well, I want to just wrap this up then. Our next student engagement webinar series is on shifting the locus of control to the student. That's May 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern. The following in the series, the third, will be the self-directed learner on July 19th at 1 p.m. You can register for these at elimindset.com/services. I think that's all there is. Here is all the contact information. We will also send you these slides. Blanca, there is Tom Darling. I think Blanca's down the road from you in Santa Fe, Tom, so you should expect to hear her soon. Our contact information will come to you at the immediately following this webinar. And if there are no further comments, thank you for joining the webinar. I hope to speak with each of you very soon. Thank you.